Check one, two.
Testing, test.
Scott Bass, let's tell people how great Colby Plus wetsuits are and what a deal.
Oh my, you know what? The water's chilly. The Santa Ana wind that just blew in created some upwelling. And so while it might say that it's 60 degrees, it feels like it's 57 degrees. And no better time for me than now to have my Colby Plus wetsuit on. Toasty warm, buttery inside, smooth and comfortable. I'm a big fan, and I know you are too.
Do we have any swell with the Santa Anas?
I mean, there's some fun little waves rolling through down here. Yesterday, 3 to 4 feet, plenty of surf yesterday. Man, it was really pretty. It was just one of those picturesque sort of California dreaming days, but the water was chilly, man. I needed my Colby Plus full suit.
So I just went to their website and I'm going to read you a review from one happy customer. He gave it 5 stars and said, toasty comfort. No water intake at neck or cuffs. The suit fits like a glove and is ultra comfortable, toasty and flexible. It's one of those suits that I don't even know it's on. Second skin. Can't wait for my 3 millimeter hood version for the deep, dark winter mornings.
That guy is smart. He's right on too, by the way. Couldn't have
I
said
mean,
it better myself.
poetic, even.
Holy
that
mackerel.
that customer's name is Scott Bass. Good job, Scott.
Yeah.
Well written and yeah, totally true as well. So thank you. Go to Colby Plus. And by the way, this 3-2, best 3-2 I've ever had in my life. They get better every year. It's under $300, which is the craziest part. So go to Colby Plus for the Yamamoto rubber wetsuits. And then also go to realwatersports.com. Man, if you haven't been there the last couple of weeks of Black Friday, I don't know what you were doing, but there is still time to get in on that Christmas gifting with shipping in time for Christmas on Real Water Sports. And if all else fails, go with a gift card.
Yes, absolutely. Real Water Sports, our friend's trip. Get it done, folks. Real Water Sports. That's where I'm going right now. I'm looking. I need a deal.
Go for it, Scott. Realwatersports.com.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing right.
Yeah, a guy. Yeah, a guy. Welcome everybody. It is Spit. It's the Spit Podcast. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass with you here on this cold December morning, Wednesday, December 11th. And a beautiful day on tap, a beautiful week. Although up there in Los Angeles, just south of you, about an hour, there's been some pretty bad fires. So that's kind of scary in the Malibu region.
It's just north an hour, but yeah, it happens,
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, regularly. It's kind of a yearly occurrence. Sometimes, the fires don't ravage any homes, but other times it's horrific and they get a lot of homes. So remains to be seen. But the Santa Ana winds that benefit us as surfers definitely do not help.
No, but the winds are laying down a little bit here today, and hopefully, it's been it's been a bit of a tragic situation. And hopefully, there's things straighten out here today, and they get it under control.
Um, how is your Christmas spirit coming along? Are you Christmas shopping yet? Are you completed with your shopping? You
It's
watching
funny.
Christmas movies?
It's so I went to Montana to visit my son, and they had this thing in Bozeman called I don't know what it's called. I guess it's called the Christmas stroll, but it's actually just, they close down Main Street and they have live bands, and there's, all sorts of activities and kids and fires, or kids are roasting marshmallows, and there's a Santa, and there's a whole deal. And it really, at first I was like, okay, let's check it out. But it really put me into the Christmas spirit because it had basically the entire town of Bozeman walking down Main Street, all with their children and quite joyous, and it made me feel warm and fuzzy inside. It was wonderful.
That sounds idyllic. What a
Now,
cool.
speaking of gifts, you asked me about gifts.
Mhm.
Let me show you a gift that, by the way, perhaps perhaps the greatest part of Christmas is purchasing gifts for yourself.
Oh, really?
It's almost like you get, I know,
I
I know
never,
that
my
sounds pretty
parents,
self-indulgent, and perhaps it is.
Yeah, and my parents never read me that child's book when I was growing up.
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah, you gotta no,
Okay, perfect. I'm dying to see what you got yourself.
okay,
I'm guessing
okay.
cashmere.
Hold on, let me show you.
Okay, go.
So I saw this on Instagram and it's 150 surfboards and it's a poster that my friend, I don't really know him, but I bought it from him. But he's, we follow each other on Instagram and it's 150 surfboards. It's a poster, a historical poster, um, which is just, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's got all the boards. I saw it and I was like, I want this for myself. I'm going to have it framed.
For
And
anybody not looking on Instagram, it's the outline. It's a straight on shot of the deck, probably, or the bottom of a board. So you see the outline. It looks like what you would shoot to display it for the California Gold Surf Auction.
exactly. Or yeah. So it's 150 surfboards, each, and, quite a few of the, well, they're all historically significant, culturally significant surfboards from the early ancient Hawaiians to the early 2000 modern shortboard. And so it's just kind of a neat reference point, I think.
Is it
And
like one a year, basically?
no, it's kind of more broken down than that, actually. I'm not sure exactly what his methodology was regarding how he determined which board would be on his poster, but it's just I find it to be a really great reference point, to have it framed, put up on my wall, especially
Mhm.
for the work that I do. And look, we could nitpick it and say, oh, he missed some, or he got too many of this brand, or this, or, whatever. But it does, regardless, he put his heart and soul into it. By the way, it's Instagram is Shapeology,
Oh, yeah.
Shapeology, and I think he's in France
Yep,
actually.
I think so too.
And but it's one of the many little Christmas gifts I purchased for myself.
Very cool, dude.
Yeah.
One of the many. Um, I'm usually so far ahead of the game. I usually have a list in November, and then I try to execute around Black Friday or Cyber Monday to get like basically gifts for everybody in the family. And I am just so far behind at this point. I really need to catch up. Or I don't know. I think maybe some of our lust for giving or consumerism has also gone. Like
Yeah.
I literally don't want anything from,
Yeah.
like I have everything I need, and when I need it, I buy it, and then
Yeah.
I don't want extras essentially.
Yeah. I
So
know
maybe
that
that's what
this.
it is.
Yeah, that's a sign of I don't know if it's maturity or you just understand that you don't need any stuff. It's kind of like when you buy yourself handkerchiefs. Like if you purchase yourself handkerchiefs or socks and you're excited about it, which by the way, I am, it kind of means like you're either, you know, you've got enough stuff or you're perhaps growing
You're
on a spiritual level.
you're down to only purchasing the essentials and replacing the essentials.
Right. Which I'm going
Um,
to completely contradict and sound like a hypocrite later in the show when we talk about surfboards.
well, we all know that. We all know that's your vice. Um, yeah, I think in the past I would always say, "Oh, I don't want anything or I don't need anything." But I would still get stuff and be like, "Oh, sweet, I'll use that or I'm grateful for it or whatever." I'm literally at the point where I don't need anything. Don't want anything either.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I just got these like when you buy yourself, warm, cozy, walking around
Slip-ons
old man leisure slip-ons.
so that you don't have
Just
to bend over to put them on.
yeah.
But
Those are the kinds of purchases tend to be getting as like comfort.
comfort purchases.
Yeah.
Well,
It's really quite sad.
well,
I don't buy myself tools. Let's put it that way.
I'll tell you what you should be doing, Scott.
Yeah.
This right here, drinkag1.com
Mm.
slash surf. Daily routine, give the gift of health and wellness, man.
You know what's cool about AG1 this time of year? A lot of us tend to kind of get into eating muffins and sweets and doughy things and
Totally.
cheese and, like foie gras or whatever. No, I'm not eating foie gras, but my point is that we tend to indulge, and AG1 is going to keep us on the right track for health and for wellness. Get your greens in each and every day with a simple, very simple procedure, which is putting some water into the beautiful AG1 powder, mixing it up and drinking it. And you're on your way to health and wellness.
No, you're exactly right. I actually eat all of those things in addition, but I know at least I'm getting the nutrition I need on top of all the fat.
When was the last time you had foie gras?
2 weeks ago.
Wow. Obviously it's imported. Do they make it domestically? Do they make that here?
I think they still make it certain places for sure. Sonoma used to generate a lot. New York, like Hudson Valley makes a bunch. But Chaz was in France for like a month during the summertime, or 2 months actually. And so he brought some back for me, gave it to me at the boardroom show, in fact. And then
cool.
I ate it about 2 weeks ago. But there's a local Jewish deli near me, and they do a chicken pate or a chicken liver that they blend up into a mousse, basically, which is very, very similar to foie gras. And so that's an equivalent for me. That's way cheaper and phenomenal. And I'm going to a dinner party on Saturday, and I'm actually bringing some of that. So,
oh, cool. Yeah, I remember the only time I've ever had it actually was in France, and I was sort of like, oh, I guess I'm going to have this because it's sort of like the cultural thing to eat. And God, I loved it. I was like, I had no idea. Don't tell me what it is. Just call it foie gras, and I'll eat it. I don't need to know that it's some sort of, is it duck or goose liver or something?
yeah, you can do either. Yeah, so if you like butter and you like meat, it's literally as if you blended meat and butter together. It tastes like meat, and it's got the consistency and richness of butter. So there's nothing offensive about it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I don't know. Do you have any plans on going to Bozeman, Montana?
no, but my wife's been watching Yellowstone, and we've become romanticized by the region.
Yeah. Well, there's a restaurant that I want
Romanced.
you and your wife to go to. I think it's called 𝗀, 𝗀. It's an Asian delicacy, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's on James Beard's like 20 really great restaurants type, some list, I don't know if it's James Beard but we went to it, my wife and I, my son and his girlfriend, and man, oh man, was the flavors, it was an incredible restaurant. They put everything out on a Lazy Susan. So you just kind of order things and they keep coming, and the ribs, the noodles, the greens, the pork. It was incredible, man. So I really hope, because I know you're kind of a foodie. I don't know if you like being described like that, but I know you and your wife would really enjoy this place. Check it out. 𝗀. I think it's 𝗀 in Bozeman. Shan or Sean.
I just thought of a gift that I actually do want for Christmas now.
Oh,
a Lazy Susan.
Yes.
Those things, every time I encounter one in a restaurant environment, I'm like, this is the greatest thing of all time. And yet I've never considered putting one in my home. Now I know I need one.
I'm offended by the name. I feel like we should rename it because, maybe it's a little bit of projection, perhaps,
Who was the Susan who was so lazy she couldn't reach across the table, and her husband built this spinning wood plate on the middle? It was just like, freaking lazy Susan, here you go. Now you don't have to ask me to hand you anything.
I mean, I feel like it should be called like this, the Smart Scott or something. Like it's just such a smart thing, you just spin this thing and the food comes right in front of you. It's a no-brainer.
Perfect. Well, moving on from our comedy segment, the Pipe Masters took place yesterday. Wow.
I feel like we're still in the comedy segment.
What a disaster. Holy guacamole.
Let me first say that it was, we spoke last week about it not being broadcast, but it really sunk in and hit home yesterday when I was like, okay, I'm sure there's going to be some way I can find this thing. I went on YouTube and typed in Van's Pipe Masters live stream, but, I got nothing. And it was just a lot of comments from my friends too. Like, and it's, again, we're kind of reiterating what we said last week, but it's 2024 and we can't watch. It's December 8th or whatever, 9th, 10th, 12th. We can't watch the Pipe Masters. Like that's just like, it's kind of like, to me, it's like Vans. It's almost like a horrible marketing move. It's like Vans is lame. You know what I mean? Like, don't even put your name on it if you can't live stream the Pipeline Masters. Like, don't you feel like it's almost like a really bad marketing move for Vans?
I totally do. It's a visual display of the degradation of the brand is sadly what it is.
Wow, well put.
And so there's why even run the event, basically.
Exactly.
It'd be better to maintain a level of dignity for the event and the legacy and all that sort of stuff by just opting out until you can actually run the event properly. But it's bad enough that it isn't streamed. I mean, that is the headline here in bold exclamation point. But then when you run the event in a day like yesterday, the quality of the waves, they had to call off the event after I think 5 heats only. No important rides, nothing even worse showcasing it after the fact. Then it's an extra punch in the gut. It's kind of like, what? This has become a complete mess.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, again, we're speaking sort of from a consumer and end user. We want to consume the sport, the professional sport at the Pipe Masters. I wonder how the competitors feel. I'm sure they don't really care that it's not live streamed. They're like, look, we're here on the beach and I'm putting on my jersey and it's time for a heat.
I think they absolutely care. I understand the point you're making. I get to surf pipe with a few other people out. That's the ideal. But you want the sport and the commerce portion of it to be robust because that only benefits you. And if you can bag a 12-point ride and end up on ESPN that night, guess what? That's phenomenal for your career. And so there's no option of that with this version that they're competing in. And I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg in this scenario, but do you want to guess how many pipe masters are invited back to this event? How many current actual pipe masters, despite the name of the thing, how many people have won this event in the past who are invited into and competing in this year's?
Well, I know there's one.
Who?
Jamie.
Correct. There's one.
And maybe there's a girl.
So there's two on the men's side, two on the women's side. Jamie and Baron Mamiya. Baron won last year.
Yeah.
And Caitlin Simmers, who I guess, was that last year she won? Yeah. And Moana Jones Wong.
Yeah.
So that's it. And you look and you go, John's at the top of his game still. Kelly won this event or won the pipe event a couple years ago. He should still be there. Where's Gabriel? Where's 𝗬𝗏?
Did those guys turn down their invites?
Great question. And so that's where I said I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. Is I don't know if they just declined to even come because what's the point? Or if it was fumbled so bad enough that Vans didn't invite former pipe masters. I mean, look, I understand maybe 𝗬𝗏𝗏 would rather be in Abu Dhabi. But Jamie O'Brien, or not Jamie O'Brien.
Speaking of foie gras, I sense that he's probably eating foie gras in Abu Dhabi, just like having somebody like drop it into his mouth, like.
Totally. But Jeremy Flores would absolutely accept an invite, Michelle Perez would accept an invite. Like there's all these legacy history that you could bring back into the event. And I really think that they've eroded the interest in it enough to where people are kind of like, no, it's mismanaged. You try to turn it into an air contest and you're not streaming it.
I believe last year John turned it down with his people saying, or him basically saying, look, I want to prime myself for the WSL event that's coming up. I'm not sure how much of that is spin and how much of that is what you're saying, but I think they did invite John. I can't imagine they wouldn't actually just invite him. So yeah.
Okay. Well, the fact that he didn't come, the fact that Kelly's not there.
I don't know if they invited Kelly. Do you think they invited Kelly? I would hope. How can you not invite Kelly Slater? I mean, that's like basically not inviting Jamie O'Brien. Oops. Oh, they did that too.
Legend. I mean, on the list, Legend Chandler. I know he's an up and coming young pro there. Crosby Colapinto is on the list. That seems off. Sharif Fall from Senegal is on the list. Koldo Alumbe is on the list. Caius King is on the list. Again, these are competent surfers, but this is the pipe masters. Guy Sato, Lungi Slab, Tosh Tudor,
So are you suggesting that it feels more Like these like sound like challenger names, like
Totally. I mean, these sound like up and coming kids who have a social media profile and they're surfing really well, and maybe they've gotten a few waves out at Pipe. This is the Pipe Masters. I want to see Jamie O'Brien surfing against Jeremy Flores, surfing against Baron Mamiya, surfing against John, surfing against Gabriel Medina. I want to see all names in the draw that can win the event, not go
yeah,
people who are going out there to get more practice at Pipe.
yeah. Well,
So
good point. That's a good point. And maybe we're not missing much. Although I think the swell looks good coming up here. I want to say later in the waiting period. There's
well,
plenty of swell on tap. So
couple of notes though. You mentioned you couldn't find a stream. I found two streams. One that everybody seemed to be promoting was Black Bear Surf Club.
yeah,
So great on them for doing that. But the one that I actually watched was Nathan Florence. And
yeah,
Nathan's done this in the past as well. He had, I don't know which camera feed he was using, but he had a camera set up. So he was catching all the action. And then he also had a little inset just of a selfie camera where he was providing direct commentary. And he's phenomenal at it. And he's not trying to fill dead air. He's not just rambling the whole time. He leaves plenty of dead air, but he totally gives everything that he does say is incredibly insightful and valuable. And then he also engages with the commenters. So people will ask him a question, he'll just reply to the question from the comment section. So I think Nathan was doing a great service.
yeah. And I agree. I actually caught some of that, and it was, it was what it was. It was a little, the production quality was just like you would expect from, hey, let's just set up this cam here, and we got this
Yeah.
cam there, and excuse me while I eat lunch. I gotta go.
It's bare bones, but it provides you what you need. And the other thing is he said, I think somebody asked, where would you surf right now? Like since Pipe isn't doing it, where would you go? He goes, Sunset. Sunset's probably 8 to 10 feet right now. I'm pumping. Turns out it is. I saw clips of Tosh Tudor yesterday getting shacked on the inside bowl there. But the fact that Nathan could be doing something else, the reason he's streaming is for his audience, basically. And so I appreciate that effort as well.
Isn't he a Vans rider? Or is
Oh,
he
that's
now on
right.
Florence? Is he on Florence now, or is he both?
That's a great question. He was on Vans forever. He's on Florence clothing. I don't know if maybe he's on Vans for shoes still. Um, my other thought here, Scott, is when markets are down, is the time to kind of reinvent with no consequence. And so I saw this as an opportunity for Vans to do something that you and I have been talking about for years, which is a pay-per-view model.
Yeah.
If they were worried that, or if they couldn't come up with the $20,000 it costs to stream this event live for 3 days, why not talk to the bean counters at Vans and be like, hey, here's what we're going to do. $50 a person, $30 a person, whatever it is, we can probably get 1,000 people to give us that much money. That'll at least cover our costs. But in a great scenario, we have Firing Surf and we sell, you know, $100,000 worth of pay-per-views. And that is a model that I think the WSL should consider and that we've talked about a lot in the past. If it's proven that these things lose money, why not let the viewers fund it? Actually, Stab Magazine has already done this. But this would be an opportunity for Vans to not only cover their costs, but to potentially turn a profit and hopefully usher in a new era of streaming.
Well, it's funny. While you were telling me this, I Googled Vans shoes in trouble, and I just clicked on it, and there's a pretty massive Wall Street Journal article that I haven't read from 2024, this year, I think about a year ago. And it says how Vans lost its step and is trying to get it back. And again, I'm not going to bore listeners with it, but fiscally, I've heard from others, including you, that they're struggling, and I guess we're going to suffer some of the consequences by not getting a wonderful broadcast.
𝗑𝗏 is struggling, and
Yeah.
Vans is definitely not pulling their weight and dragging it down. I mean, the direct effect for us in the surf world is obviously the Pipe Masters and the Triple Crown. There's not even a digital Triple Crown this year, which is kind of shocking. But additionally is the team being let go. The Gudauskas brothers, some legacy icon surfers who are generating tons of content every year who have been let go is just a bummer for the surf world.
Yeah. And the forecast looks super solid. Like
Good.
I mean, it's about a week away, but next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it looks good. And maybe, as is often the case, I won't speak for you, but I overstepped my bounds, and maybe next week we're going, wow, these clips that we're getting online from the event are incredible, and it's boiled down. And isn't it great that I didn't have to spend all day watching the Vans Pipe Masters, and I got to just see these incredible clips. But I'm a sports consumer. I'm the type of guy that I don't even want to tape a live event and then come back to it
Yeah.
in concern that somebody might send me a text about what happened and then I'll miss the moment.
Yeah.
I really enjoy live sports, and that's what we're going to miss and that's what I missed yesterday when I tuned in. I can't believe I'm not going to get to watch live Derek Hough getting spit out of a friggin' uber long second reefer for tens across the board, all of those great moments that we remember from Pipeline.
Totally agree. And it is funny when we do that. This week we're totally down on something, and all it takes is pumping surf, and then the next week we're like, holy cow, everything turned around. What do you know?
The
But
funny thing is that the thing I just referenced wasn't a live, like back then there was no live stream, but I remember Derek Hough just from the magazine.
yeah, total. And funny thing is, we're back at that era now. We have to
Oh
wait
my God.
days. We have to wait until the contest is printed on paper and ink for us to now find the result because they're not streaming it live.
But
So
back up. So I should tune into, to get this problem solved, I should tune into Nathan Florence's YouTube channel.
yeah, Nathan's doing the best job at it. But here's where I also see a ball being dropped. And by the way, I want to speak because I agree with you. I'm the consumer who wants the thing you're talking about, but I'm also saying all these things from the perspective of a consultant, let's say, an industry consultant, which is, hey guys, you're dropping the ball, and here's a way that you could run with it despite having very limited resource. And one of those people is somebody like Surfline. So if Nathan Florence can pull this together with his limited resources and provide the best version of it, what could somebody in the middle do? We don't need it to necessarily be the WSL at the top with the fully plug and play model, but somebody like Surfline who has cameras, they have the production crews, they have back end editing, they have all of the elements right at their fingertips, could easily pilfer a stream.
There must be some legal licensing issues there.
Then why is Nathan Florence able to do it?
Because I think he's a Vans. I think he's
Well,
a
then
Vans
why
guy.
is-
Or they're just like, Vans isn't going to like cause a stink when
So
they're
why is
getting their
Black Bear
content
Surf-
out for free without having to pay a dime to get it out for free.
Well, you understand what I'm saying is
Yes.
people are doing exactly without being prosecuted. So
Yeah.
it leads me to believe that somebody like Surfline, and look, maybe that permit prevents cameras in a certain zone on the beach, but then you can run drones. There's
Well, I
got to
just
be a
think-
way to work around it.
I think Surfline, like from a legal standpoint, their counsel is probably going, let's not even go there. We don't need the drama of, Vans coming back to us and going, hey, blah, blah. I think somebody like Nathan Florence, like, is Vans really going to cause a stink about Nathan Florence? I think the backlash would just be too gnarly, whereas there probably wouldn't be as much backlash from the public regarding Surfline. They'd be like, Vans is pissed. I get it. Legally, you can't do that.
You make a point, but I think there is money on the table that nobody's collecting here. You have the pipe masters, and the owner of it is totally leaving opportunities for somebody to benefit from exactly what that name is worth that they're not utilizing. So somebody should swoop in and fill the gap.
I agree.
And Nathan is doing a great job of it, by the way.
Before we move on, let's take a quick break.
Okay. Just as a minor segue because it kind of relates to the conversation about Vans is the ABG Liberated Brands story. Did you
Yeah,
track this at all?
a little bit. It's also quite confusing, but at the end of the day, if I boiled it down, what I got from it was fashion doesn't, I don't give a shit about fashion.
Yeah, it's funny. That's exactly how I felt about it too. After kind of going through the tedium of it, I was like, this isn't even, this is so far not surf at this point. The only connection to surf is that the brands that are owned by this conglomerate and licensed out are Quicksilver, Billabong, Ruka, brands whose names came from surfing. But the way that it's operating now, A, has nothing to do with surfing, and then B, further proves that it's not sustainable on a mass level. You know, like you can have a really great, 20 or $30 million clothing brand in the surf world and live a great lifestyle and be the toast of the town. But once you try to go mainstream and through national and international distribution and retail, it really loses its cool. It's no longer cool.
Yeah, it all comes down to the very first company going public, Quicksilver. I believe it was like 1986 or something like that. And ever since then, it's no longer core.
Exactly. So, for the record,
And let me add this: uh, the companies that did come in and replace the Quicksilvers, like let's say Volcom came in and was super core. Their whole thing was to get to where Quicksilver was. You
and
know
they
what I
did.
mean? Like at the end of the day, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I fully bless the idea of prosperity, but just don't try to. The problem is that there was this, youth against the establishment, and really what everyone, especially young kids, I think need to recognize is that they're just clothing companies. They don't give a shit about you. What you should be concerned with is what makes you feel good. What you put on makes you feel good, and sometimes some of those brands make you feel good when you're a 22-year-old kid. I know they made me feel good when I was a 22. They helped me identify with this sport that I loved and this culture that I grew up in. And then you get older and you're like, I actually kind of like the cashmere sweaters. Are a lot more comfortable.
I was going to make that joke, but you got there first.
Yeah.
It's not even a joke. Well, for the record, ABG, um, Authentic Brands Group, who purchased those brands, their whole idea was um, owning them, owning the asset, and then licensing it out. So you have a property management company essentially doing all of the day-to-day work to get those brands into stores, to manufacture those brands, to get those brands into stores, and ABG just holds the asset and reaps the benefit of the revenues that come in, the licensing fees. So ultimately what's happening now is that they're pulling back those licenses and they're going to rework the model. And so that's a reflection of goals not being hit, basically. So the licensees who are doing all of that work all essentially figured out these brands don't generate as much profit as we thought that they did, and they're not executing. So ABG needs to pull it back and figure out a new way to run the business. But it further proves exactly what we started out by saying, which is just surfing small and only a certain number of people care, and that's the core, and they'll support it until it's not core, and then nobody will support it. So
It was interesting when I was looking at that article and I read it and I tried to consume and decipher all the information. I was looking at some of the licensees. I was like, I bet some of these are kind of killing it. Like there was like, for instance, I'm just going to throw something out there. I don't know if this is fact, but it was like, there was like Roxy women's footwear in Europe, and I was like, I bet and there's like one little company that runs just that owns the license for that little section. I'm like, I bet they're doing okay. It's like the ones that are trying to sell board shorts that are failing miserably. But I think like the guys that license the Quicksilver toothpaste might be doing really good. They're probably like in gift shops around the world, and and the
yeah,
margins are through the roof. And it's some company like, like Daiwa in South Korea or something that's a
yeah.
license for Quicksilver toothpaste and they're mowing it down.
Well, I think the other interesting detail here, just to note from a 30,000 foot level is all of the messaging that you talked about, youth against the establishment or whatever, that made those companies so unique or individual and made you connect with them. If they're all owned by one nameless, faceless conglomerate brand, it really undermines the messaging on the ground level.
Oh yeah. No,
Like, how do we really distinguish, or how do we buy what you're trying to sell, literally, if you're all just owned by some bean counter in New York City? Like, now I feel like a dupe.
Yeah. Who can't
So,
swim?
right. Well, anyways, that is directly related to the Vans conversation, of course, and a sign of the times, more importantly. But let's get on to surfboards.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm sure you saw this article on Stab, and it was basically like they sent out a questionnaire to the premium members, like, what's your favorite board that you rode last year, you know, and they got their answers back and they put it out there, and it ends up that the top 10 brands, Channel Islands came in first with 14% of the respondents, 𝗏𝗽𝗃𝗃 7%, JS in third with 6%, 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃 5%, Lost 3%, Album 3%, Firewire 3%, Chili 2%, Hayden Shapes 2%, DHD 2%. So Channel Islands was the big winner, doubling what their closest competitor got from, again, this questionnaire that was given to premium members of Stab. What's the single best surfboard you've ridden? And Channel Islands clearly winning that. What are your thoughts on the process or the procedure of getting this information, getting this data?
I like it. I think it's actually more true than a lot of other methods of collecting data. The one kind of obvious that you would just take with a grain of salt is that it's limited to Stab readers, premium members even. So who is their demographic? Who's the demographic that is paying Stab to be a premium member? And then that's greatly going to influence the results. But keep that in mind, and just know, I think this is actually a really accurate way to collect info.
Yeah. And, you know, it got me thinking. There's a line in this article that I grabbed that I thought was really kind of important. And I'm going to quote from the article. It says, in the surf world, that means a deluge of very slightly tweaked new models each and every year. And that's sort of what we've come down to with the big brands, is that they just take X model and turn it into X1 with a slight tweak and then market it as X1. And it sort of reminds me of the golf industry. There's like slight tweaks, but there's an emphasis on slight, and there's way more emphasis behind the scenes on the marketing of that slight tweak. Now, golf clubs, for 95% of the duffers out there, such as myself, I can hit a 3-year-old driver just as good, or just as bad, if you will, as a better brand new one that's been slightly tweaked. But guess what I have in my bag? I have the brand new one. And so there's an allure, right? There's an allure. My individual passion for the sport of surfing and surfboards. It burns brightly and it's hot, and sometimes it blinds me. And I get the latest craze in surfboards, and you know it, and the listeners know it, and I love it. You know, I think it's fun. I think in surfing and in surfboards, perhaps more than any other hard good, surfboard tweaks, the slightest of tweaks, actually are noticeable. I think in a golf club, like the head of a driver, I don't notice, like, you know, I can't tell the difference. But I think surfboard tweaks are noticeable, and I really do think they matter. And the cool thing about surfboards, or maybe the bad thing, depending on your wallet, is that the tweaks are endless, right? Which stringer, you know, or maybe I'm going to get a composite stringer, or which wood. Do I get birchwood? Do I get basswood? Do I get an EPS or a polyfoam? Or maybe I get XTR foam, or actually I'm going to get a combo. I'm going to get EPS and poly this time. And which blank company should I get? Arctic blank? Should I get a Millennium blank? Should I get a US blank? And this time I'm going to get less glass, David. I'm going to get maybe 4 ounce throughout, or maybe a carbon wrap. Maybe I add Kevlar. No, I'm going to go with poly, blank, 4-ounce, 6-ounce on the deck, 4 and 6 on the deck, a 4-ounce bottom, and a stock US blank with 1/8-inch basswood. Guess what? After all of that, I'm back to the exact same thing that I had 30 years ago, a poly blank. But there are so many options, and I haven't even gotten into the design of the surfboard yet, or the fins, or the color. And it just made me realize what a wonderful thing we have here in the surfboard manufacturing industry. And of course, I'm waving the flag because I'm a big part of it, but it's so much fun to go to anywhere to buy a board, wherever you buy your boards. If it's calling your local shaper, or going to a surf shop, or going wherever, going on Craigslist. Surfboard purchasing, like the different little tweaks are really powerful.
I know you said you landed on a certain board in that analogy, but we all know you bought all of them along the way too. You did get the Kevlar one, you did get the carbon one, you did get the EPS one, you did get the poly.
I did, and I have them, and I enjoy them. I have the new carbon Kevlar.
I know you do,
and it's insane. I love it.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is yesterday I grabbed an old board that I've had for a long time. It's poly. It's 4 and 6 on the deck, 4 on the bottom, 2+1, 7-foot round board. Very simple design, but a super reliable design, and I loved it. And my very first custom surfboard was a Channon. I went up on the hill here in Encinitas off of West Lake, and we knocked on the doors. We were like, I think I was 15, because I didn't have a car. I had to have my buddy drive me there. We all went together, me and my 2 or 3 buddies, and we all ordered the same exact board, a Channon round pin, single fin. Jack Jensen shaped it. The only reason Jack Jensen shaped it is because he's the guy who poked his head out of the door and said, "Hey, what do you kids want?" And we're like, we'd like to order new boards. And he's like, "All right." And he just filled out he just got 4 orders right there. But it was a poly blank with 1/8-inch, probably, I don't know, I'm going to say it was a basswood, but whatever type of wood it was. And it was a 4 and 6 deck and a 4-ounce bottom. And that same exact thing is what I rode yesterday. And it was fine. But in between all that, I've got all these wonderful choices too, which is, the new fins that are coming out are just incredible.
Spice of life, man.
Yeah.
Well, I have a couple of comments on the actual data that they collected. Channel Islands came up huge, and it's really no surprise, to be perfectly honest. I was surprised to see the gap that they doubled second place, but I've never had a bad one. I've had maybe 5 or 6 Channel Island surfboards in my life. I've loved all of them. And a couple of them were customs, but most of them, probably 4 of them, might have been off the rack. And I've never had a bad one. And so I think that their reputation is excellent. You get good boards from them, 𝗏𝗽𝗃 coming in second, I thought was also huge, because 𝗏𝗃𝗃, in the last decade, he's jumped leaps and bounds. There was a number of brands that dominated those first 5 positions for a very long time, and 𝗏𝗽𝗃 broke through, and not just broke through, but broke through into second position, which I think is really impressive. Album being included in that list is impressive. I guess the one thing that was shocked me the most is that they're mostly all thrusters. We haven't seen the top 10 board models that were selected yet. We've only seen 11 through 20, but almost, I think 8 of those are thrusters. So maybe that's also just a reflection of Stab's audience more than anything else. But okay, that's what it is then. Because when I go to the beach, or I guess when I talk to, all my circle of friends don't ride thrusters anymore.
Yeah, I wonder, that makes me think, the Gold Coast really responded heavily to this survey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that could be it.
But, that would suggest to you that JS or DHD would be a little bit higher. I think where you and I live, it's just not thruster-centric. I rarely ride a thruster, and I love thrusters. I wish the waves were good enough so that I could ride thrusters all the time. And the only time I grab a thruster is if I'm going to a really good beach break.
Yeah, well, so I was surfing Huntington with a buddy recently, and I don't really pay that close of attention to anybody else. I kind of just have my blinders on and I go surfing. But I was with him and we were chatting, and I was a little bit just more distracted than normal, I guess. So I was looking around. because the waves are kind of crappy and I was riding just a fish because it was like soft and slow. And I was shocked at how many people were riding thrusters. I was like, that is the worst board choice in the world today. Why would they be doing that? And then I realized it's probably because they just always ride thrusters no matter what, you know? But I'm like, we're going to paddle out. They're not even going to be able to catch a wave. And even if they do, what are you going to do? 𝗦𝘂𝗃𝗃𝗃 the whole way down the line? There's nowhere to even do a turn on that board. So I don't know. Maybe people do ride thrusters.
Yeah, there's a lot to decipher from this survey. It's, I mean, look, I agree with you. By the way, there's two brands that on here that I've never had a bad board from.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean that they're better because of that. I don't mean it to say like that. And in fact, I won't even mention them I'll just say there's two that I've never had a bad board from. And so I guess I'm wondering, like part of me is like, this award almost goes to 𝗦𝗶𝗽𝗵𝗵𝗀 on some level, like that guy's kind of a marketing machine. Like 𝗦𝗶's done a really, really good job with Channel Islands, especially sort of like their, I don't know how to, I guess I'll say alternative, but I think everything but the thruster,
Yeah.
𝗦𝗶's done a really good job with their alternative craft, their longboards. I mean, sometime this week I'll get something from 𝗦𝗶 that's like, hey man, and he'll slightly nudge me into discourse about what's happening at Channel Islands.
Right. Well, what was interesting too is they broke down by region, and Channel Islands dominated every region. I mean, other than South Africa. I think South Africa was the one that had something else in first place, but Channel Islands was
𝗔𝗽𝗄𝗄.
That's right. But Channel Islands was the #1 pick in all regions. So I think that is also very telling, because when I looked at the top 10 overall and JS was #3, I'm like, that can't be right. Like I never see JS surfboards really, except that it's probably a huge contingent of Australian respondents to this. And so that does make sense. But the fact that Channel Islands has done well to market and supply each individual. And that's the other thing is like DHD doesn't have production in California.
Yeah.
So that's why we don't see a lot of DHDs here.
Yeah.
But the fact that Channel Islands has not only set up production in lots of different countries around the world and regions, but then also did successful marketing efforts and everything else, connected all the dots to end up in this position is impressive.
Yeah. I think I didn't fill out one of these forms. I am a premium stab member. I probably should have, but I would love to see, like, it'd be great if I was one of these companies. I'd be like, I'd like to drill down into this data,
Yeah.
like I'd like to know where are our holes? Why isn't JS bigger in Southern California, for instance? Or maybe the respondents from Oceanside for JS was through the roof, but the respondents north and south of Oceanside, or where, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like, I'd like to drill down into the data, and because it would just be so powerful for us to be able to go, okay, well, we need to put some energy over here, or let's just admit we've lost that region. Let's just focus where we're good and continue, whatever your strategy is. I imagine they're sitting on some pretty good data. I don't know how deeply this survey or these questions broke down and got into the weeds, but be interesting.
Yeah, well, if Stab decides to start selling listener data, that's a new business model for them. Well, I want to say one thing in closing. Look at this sweater I got on right here, Scott. See how stylish it is? The Surfrider Foundation.
Yes.
They've reinvested in the merch. Little kangaroo pocket on the
that looks brand
crew
new,
neck.
dude. That looks like you haven't even washed it.
Oh, I've worn this thing a lot, man.
Okay.
So they've reinvested in their merch offerings, the Surfrider Foundation, and they're really cool. I bring it up just to say it's not just one logo on a printed t-shirt. They've got really, really cool stuff. So consider it for gifting, because 100% of the proceeds go to protecting the ocean. So that's a cause.
Great cause. And we need to do that. We need to protect that.
And
all of the oceans.
The clothes are killer too. This is a crew neck sweater, but it has the kangaroo pocket. You never see that. So I'm a big fan, and the designs are really cool too.
Look at us. We were like anti-fashion. Now we're like,
go buy more.
Pimping the fashion.
I mean, if you got to give product, or if you got to give gifts.
Hey, the cool thing, just to circle back with the boards thing, is that next week, so they put out a list of 20 boards, a little graphic, but they, what's the word when you
Strike out.
yeah, they struck out, or what's the legal term anyway, they striked out the top 10. So we know what 11 through 20 is. But we'll get to know next week. They'll tell us what the top 10 magic surfboards on the survey were. We do have 11 through 20.
Yep. Well, in closing, my must-see moment presented by Trees Wax, petroleum-free performance surf wax, available at treeswax.com and better surf retailers around the country. My must-see moment is the 2013 Pipe Masters. And do you know why, Scott?
2013. Gosh, I don't know why. Fill me in.
It's a significant Pipe Master because that was the first Pipe Masters that you and I reported on Spit podcast.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And so I was thinking about, man, we can't even live stream the Pipe Masters in 2024. We've been doing this show for 11 years now. We were live streaming it 11 years ago. How have we gone backwards with this? Then I was like, man, I wonder what we were live streaming back then. So I pulled it up and oh my God, it was the heyday, dude, of professional surfing. It was John and Kelly in the final.
Oh, rad.
And Kelly beat him.
Yeah.
But Mick Fanning won the title that year, and Mick Fanning made it, I think, to the quarters, might have been the semis, and John beat Mick. And Mick got that one wave that was like second
at the
reef,
very end, right? At the very end?
second reef roll in, and he like eases in, cranks off the bottom, and the thing just like goes long and tapers all the way down. And when he comes out, he like throws himself back, and they got that photo with all the spit blowing, and he's just like, oh. So Mick Fanning won his title, but Kelly won the event. 𝗦𝘂𝗶𝗽𝗵𝗁 got an insane ride that kind of cemented his legacy. It was phenomenal surfing, and the waves were absolutely cranking. So I will post the finals day recap highlight YouTube video with today's show's notes.
That's cool. That's cool. And am I right? Is that a wave that Mick Fanning got with like dying seconds?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. I vaguely recall that.
Yeah, that's cool. Right. That's exactly what it was. Yeah, the video clip that I watched was just the recap, so it didn't show all the details like that. But you're right. Now that you say it, I totally remember that happening.
That's cool. Well, good stuff. I can't wait to at least see that this week. Let's watch.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's as relevant today as it was when we watched it 11 years ago and reported on it.
Oh, by the way, speaking of gifts, look what else I got. Do you know what this is, David?
Oh, man. Oh, it's a foil.
Oh.
It's a foil.
It's a foil from my friends at AFS out of France. They sent me the Enduro, which is a hard foil to get a hold of, and I'm excited about it.
Is that the wing? What do we call that?
That's the wing, yeah.
That's the wing.
The front wing, yeah.
That's the wing.
Yeah. But I've been surfing. The waves have been fun. I love it when I can go to my surfboard.
Yeah.
But when it's small, we go to the foil.
Yep.
All right. Well, David, we've had a great show. We've said a lot. The waves are going to be pumping in Hawaii next week this time, and hopefully we're going to get some great Pipeline Masters footage. And I'm going to watch Nathan Florence's feed. I think it's going to be good. So do that. Until next time, adios and aloha.